Hey, I'm all here for Ubisoft being dumpstered on again. Charlie just made a video over something they've done again to go against a demographic who support them. Gamers, probably, most likely. Let's watch.
With the amount of tomatoes I've thrown at Ubisoft over the last couple of years, I could run Heinz out of business. It is incredibly easy to hate this company, and they make it
Yup.
clear that they deserve it. They are not shy about telling you how much they hate you. They've
Yup.
become infamous for the you will own
Oh,
nothing and be
nothing. Be
happy
happy.
mentality. They have even point blank said that gamers need to be comfortable not owning their games. This is a company that
I mean, as much as I dislike that quote, it is true. And it's unfortunate that we have nothing to really fight against, these companies if they're going under or anything like that, being able to pull their IP. It really sucks. That's where something like Stop Killing Games has become so attractive to people because, for these live service games too, like them just getting these end of life cycles and that's it. You can never experience it again. Really sucks. So, it would be nice if we had some kind of protection for consumers for people who do buy these games. Um, and I'm not super educated in the Stop Killing Games process, but I do think it even goes for like single player games that rely on online service. And just being protected. And the idea that like, not to get too deep into that because I'm not super studied into it. It would be nice if the consumers had some kind of protection in order for us to still have something at the end of the day. You spend hundreds of dollars, on skins, on your Fortnite skins, on your Overwatch skins. I mean, Overwatch for me, I've probably spent too much. Marvel Rivals, Call of Duty, whatever your poison is, okay? And there's nothing, all that you just kind of have to expect it to be gone, maybe, and yeah, what are you gonna do?
step of the way chooses all of the wrong options during the QuickTime events. They are not even
Yeah,
accidentally saying things that anyone could
yeah.
appreciate, even the most diehard Ubisoft Formula fans, if such a creature even exists at this point. They can't even unintentionally say something agreeable. Even as their stock price plummets, fucking
Now,
deaths.
I do want to say I don't know if any of those companies do already have some kind of protection, like hey, we'll keep whatever up for for your lifetime or anything like that. That would be nice, but my point is some games do not have any of these protections, and once they're done, they're done. So you enjoyed the time that you got to play them, and that's a it's a it's a worrying topic for a lot of people. 100%, especially if you bought something. What is the big one that went under was Funimation, and then that whole library got taken. Even if you bought some of it, like it was just gone, if I remember correctly. Could be I could be misquoting it, but again, spending all this money for nothing. Now I understand, when you rent uh like a live streaming service like Netflix or anything like that, that is temporary because you get access to their library and you can't save it at the time. I think that's obviously more understandable because it's like a movie subscription service. Um but for a game you buy a singular product. So for it to leave is like, it's just insane. Um somebody made a good point though. What if games were built for that specific reason for it to be short term, like it was part of the game design? And at that point, I feel like that's fine if that is the whole premise of the game for it to be only available for a short time. But I think the benefits from you for people who buy these games to actually still have some kind of property is much more beneficial for the grand amount of people, right?
Spirals, they somehow dig deeper. This is the equivalent to the captain of a sinking ship turning on all the sink faucets to try and fill.
There are, from what I understand though, there are a lot more arguments in that for you know, you product IP and ownership and things like that for companies not to implement it and how much it would cost to do things like that. I don't know. I haven't done all the research to see that. But, from a buyer's perspective, it would be nice if we had some kind of protection. I don't know.
Fill it up with even more water as much as possible. I cannot understand it. Today, they've gone on quite the spree here, an entire montage of bad takes.
But again, like, how do you implement it? I don't know. Okay, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
Ubisoft, and I have to make fun of them again. I actually have to. Keep in mind, this company is so misguided. They released multiple NFT games only a year ago.
Yeah.
And NFTs are dead and buried, and somehow Ubisoft is still pooping those puppies out. It's crazy how out of touch Ubisoft.
Yeah, they just, I mean, it's like such an obvious, like, a lot of companies view games as a product, and I do believe that they're, and that you, at some point you kind of have to, obviously. You know, game companies are viewed somewhat as a product, but there is an art form for it. You have to respect, and you have to respect the your demographic and what they want, essentially, and kind of know the space that you're in, like, fit around that as a product. And I feel like they should, if they're gonna tackle it as a product, they should. My point is, you should listen to their buyers a little bit more. Like, I understand people want to meme and say gamers are dumb. The most underrepresented class, but they're too stupid to fucking to understand how their products work and what they actually want. But, they're very vocal, especially on social media. And people will say, like, oh, the people, trolls or whatever on social media don't really stand for the majority. But I would say, this is kind of a hot take, that a good majority, or not majority, but a good portion of gamers are these online people and doing things online, because your gaming is like an online practice. Maybe not. I'm not fully on board with the idea of online creators affecting politics. I don't really buy that. Like YouTubers and shit like that. But gaming, I'm a bit more on board for that.
In order to prove that the stupid juice is still
so, listening to what their complaints are and wanting to understand the space, if you are a company, I think should be more important than what they're doing.
Flowing deeply at Ubisoft headquarters to this day. Let's go.
And NFT shit, it was not gonna. That was such a stretch. I think even Square Enix did it, and it was like, dude, come on. That's not gonna go down well. I again don't think it's a huge deal, as long as it's something like a mobile game or something like stupid. But to put your resources into other things, like Square Enix, if I remember right, they made an NFT. I gotta look it up because I don't want to speak out of turn. Yes, look at this. Look at this. I was right. Square Enix NFT game Symbiogenesis enters the final season. And it's like so ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure the comments on this are just like shitting on it. It's available in English, you can play it. Okay, now some people want to play it. Oh no, the NFT project failed. That's terrible. There we go. See? 6 upvotes. But like, Square Enix is having such a hard time. For them to put resources into this, into such a crazy endeavor, like a long shot, is I don't know. It seemed like very bad practice. When the other projects right now are desperate for Square Enix, and they're not doing very well, from what I understand. I'm hoping that they pick it up. Even their MMOs. I mean, if you play Final Fantasy 14, it's not in a very good place, and that's one of their money makers. Final Fantasy has been, in general, kind of like shit on recently. So, but yeah, keeping in the space and know what they want, like listening to your player base, things like that, instead of just throwing these things out in the wind.
Go ahead and show you their most recent annual financial report, where they talk about their microtransactions and how microtransactions are actually a good thing because it allows their players to experience more fun. Very reminiscent of that time EA defended Battlefront controversial decisions by claiming that it was...
If I'm being fair, I do think people enjoy these collabs and things like that. I just think it's like, when a game does like collabs with other companies, like Square, like recently Overwatch had... Speaking of Overwatch, I'm sorry, it's what I'm going to have to relate to a lot, okay? In other games, it's Street Fighter. Overwatch did a collab with Street Fighter, G.I. Joe, One Punch Man. And for other games, Naraka did it too. Obviously, Fortnite. All these crossovers. People get excited for them. People do. It's not crazy, but it is incredibly tone deaf that microtransactions have been a plague on the gaming community. Gaming society. I mean, yeah, been a plague on the gaming community, so it's not a surprise that there would be a bad taste in people's mouths when you bring this up. When it's like all the cool things, all these collabs are locked behind, large transactional fees. Like these collab skins are extremely overpriced sometimes. Like Diablo did a collab with Berserk, which I'm a huge Berserk fan, which, surprise, surprise, no, another Berserk bro. But there was a collab there and it was like so expensive for each skin. Ridiculously so. It was like $25 if I remember correctly. And like it's just like so overdone. Like almost it's like half the cost of some games, Almost half the cost. So I can understand. I only bought I bought that. I bought like one or two because I was like, man, I'm such a huge Berserk fan. I play Diablo 4 every so often with a buddy. So I could justify you justify these stupid purchases in your mind sometimes. But like to say that they're like fun, I enjoy blowing $30, it's just bad taste, So I can understand people being very upset about it.
Intended to give,
and it is upsetting. I wish you could just earn it, but at the same time, does some of this money go towards keeping these games going for longevity? I don't know. Regardless, yeah, to say that I enjoy forking over $30 is pretty crazy. I don't enjoy it. It's like fuck, dude. $30, dude. Jesus, just for one skin, dude? What am I, crazy? I feel fucking crazy doing it sometimes,
of pride and
I guess it is kind of crazy, Why would you do that?
You can catch a slight whiff of that aroma here in the Ubisoft financial report with that statement. And I also can't help but giggle at the first line in their financial report where they try and claim that they're an industry leader in this sector.
Yeah.
What a load of fucking barnacles. Get a load of this guy. Maybe at one point in time they were, but these days they are just a public spittoon for people to walk by and hawk loogies on. They are a sad shell of their former self. But this is all public. You can all read it yourself if you want to put your peepers on it. Down here is where you can find this statement. The adoption of monetization and engagement policies that respect the player experience and are sustainable in the long term. At Ubisoft, the golden rule when developing premium games is to allow players to enjoy the game in full without having to spend more. Our monetization offer within premium games makes the player experience more fun by allowing them to personalize their avatars or progress more quickly. However, this is optional. How delusional can you be? It's not even like a good lie. The motivator for these microtransactions that they are ham-fisting into every single game of theirs for the last decade is solely driven by wanting to hose the consumer for more money beyond the initial purchase of the game.
Yeah, it's inherently dishonest. It's like corporate wording like this, like maybe like... But that's a financial report, so...
Trying to squeeze some more coins out of the piggy banks of the players, hoping that some of the whales will pay to maybe speed progress up, like they mention. And while, yes, it is optional, there is a little something called pay to win, and it is a very real thing. It's not some make-believe boogeyman. But even in cases where you're offering microtransactions in single-player games, which Ubisoft loves to do...
It would be good if they made some kind of small statement and be like, look, we understand how you guys feel about microtransactions. However, they also keep the games alive. They help our company support these games, and so on and so forth. We know that it's that gamers aren't happy with the current state of microtransactions in video games. However, we view it as somewhat necessary for some of these titles. Oh, I wouldn't say that. For some titles to have them to keep the live service fees going. Another one that does it pretty good is, what's it called? Does these free updates that are really big is Monster Hunter. Now they do have a bunch of paid updates that go with it that are overpriced or whatever, but their free title updates are inherently free, and you get all this. You get to fight a new monster and things like that, and that's good. I feel like I'm fine with personally. I'm fine with microtransactions as long as they're affordable and make sense to what you're buying. Like the price matches the feature, and then two, because like that. A lot of that's my complaint is like the pricing. It's like insane sometimes. and two, that they consistently put up updates for the base game with it, and it's not just the microtransaction. If you do both of these things, where you make them affordable and make sense for the product, and you, you get with it, that because like some of them are the cost of a mini DLC. Like I said, I mean Diablo's not fair because it's like the biggest one. In my opinion, it's like one of the worst offenders. But a skin costing $20, like it's crazy sometimes, man. It's $20 is the cost of some expansions. Phantom Liberty was like what, $30? It's insane, dude.
That's not exactly something
What
worth
happened to
celebrating.
obviously paying the artists or whatever who work for on these game titles does cost money. I'm not gonna doubt it, but like games like Fortnite and shit that do have so many people working behind the scenes. I don't know how. Well, you can't charge like 10. I feel like 10 would be fair. 10 per skin, because like they already may have such an abundance of skins. So it's like if this feels it does feel like robbery.
Because now you're
It's
devoting
insane.
resources into trying to find ways to get more money out of this single player game when those resources could have been devoted to just making the game better in the first place. Something that Ubisoft seems very against. Their games fall into the same formula and have been for so long now that people are beyond tired of it. And instead of trying to find ways to breathe new life into their titles, they instead try and find new ways of monetizing them through these microtransactions and shit. It's so tone deaf as well, and it
Yeah.
shows very
I think most of it's just like tone deaf.
clearly that
Most
they
of
don't
it.
even see player feedback, because every single Ubisoft game that comes out that is riddled, infected with microtransactions, like every Assassin's Creed now, you find collective sighs from even the most loyal supporters of the franchise. People aren't happy with it. And here they are just completely ignoring it and trying to spin it as a positive thing. Like, oh, it's always optional. Like, it actually like goes over really well because, I mean, it's personalized fun, right? Who wouldn't want to pay for that? Am I right? But another thing that also came out...
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, another thing I will say. Sorry to cut it. Another thing that I want to say. A lot of the time, their microtransactions aren't just like an added, oh, you can get this cool thing. But they like, I feel like, and maybe I'm reaching here, they'll add skins for free sometimes, but they'll be far less quality than the ones you could pay for. Which makes sense to some degree, but it's completely unfair for the consumers when, I get there has to be some incentive to buy these skins, but at least give something for free back to the players that make that, not the content, but like something that, people could sink their teeth in, like the cosmetics or something for free. It's more understandable for a free to play game, but like it does it doesn't make sense for games you've paid for. Like if you're gonna add skins that you could pay premium for, the game should also release some skins every. I'm not even saying all the time. Every so often that are just as cool as the one that's premium skins. So you have different options and be like, oh, maybe you want this one. But sometimes it feels very lackluster comparatively.
Here is Ubisoft's thoughts on the real reason Star Wars Outlaws flopped.
Oh, no.
They are blaming disinterest in the franchise, which, when it was reported that Outlaws was stumbling and not performing all that well, that was cope they used back then as well, like some whispers of it being like, oh, the IP is just not as strong as it once was. Now they're just coming out here with their whole chest saying, no, the reason Outlaws didn't do well is just because no one cares about Star Wars anymore. Which is fucking crazy. They are just refusing to take the L and come to terms with the fact that the reason Outlaws didn't do well is it's just not a good game. And it doesn't even have the decency of being like a laughably horrible game where it could be like entertaining in how shitty it is. It is just so boring. Yeah. It is like the most safe, by the numbers, bland, sterile, Ubisoft, Ubislop game. It is this.
That's a big reason why I didn't buy Assassin's Creed Shadows, because I was like, hey, I love Japan, dude. I'm a weeb, bro. I read manga, I watch anime, I do the whole 9 yards. I've been reading it since I was a kid. Before it became popular, okay? All right? I was reading manga. All right? Now it's popularized. Everyone reads it. It's like not even, Assassin's Creed specifically looked very boring. Looked very by the numbers. And I was hoping for something else. And the actual like people reviewing it has been less than stellar. And there's people who have been somewhat trusting the franchise, being like, it is the best of the series, but it's still roughly the same thing. But I guess people who love that type of shit, like some people love Assassin's Creed. A lot of people do. But to me, it just looks so generic. And I was really hoping that Shadows might have been something different. Beyond the controversy, I was like, hey man, if it's a really good game, if they nail it, I'll try it. I can understand some people being upset about some of the changes they made. People spoke out about. I can understand to some degree. For people, but regardless of that, yeah, it just looks like they didn't even. It just looks incredibly generic. So I'm hoping, yeah, it's just funny to hear them say shit like that.
And clearly people are tired of. The only difference with this one is it had a Star Wars skin on it.
Yeah.
And also some of the worst stealth you'll find. But outside of the worst stealth you'll find, everything else was just serviceable.
Now, I might try Shadows once it goes down in price. I saw it on sale for 25% off, and I was like, not enough.
And it didn't even try to do anything well. It was just content being mid. And Ubisoft has, for some reason, really struggled with accepting the fact that mid just doesn't really cut it anymore.
Not in this day and age.
Want more.
Gaming is so good right now. It is peak performance, dude. There are so many fucking games that actually knock shit out of the park. And somebody who's saying there's nothing out there, I don't believe you. There's a games for any little niche out there. I was watching some people play Patapon. And Patapon's like a rhythm game, and it looked really fun. But, like, there's so many different things to try. There's so many different things that are actually well made that I just feel like you're not being honest.
Or Ubisoft.
Maybe in the AAA open world genre, there's maybe some stuff you might not like that aren't really, meeting your criteria might be good. But there's so many different types of games. I would say you just have to branch out a little bit.
Open world games, it's been done a billion times the exact same way every time. It's tired and it's played out, and the sales show that with Star Wars Outlaws. It has nothing to do with the weakening of the IP, which is a real thing. Since going to Disney, it hasn't been as strong. A lot of the Disney shows have been super stinkers, but I think there is more evidence to the contrary that there is a hunger for good Star Wars, as demonstrated by Andor.
I'm gonna be one of those guys. Bring back Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Let's get the remake up and going, dude. I want to get some updates. The greatest Star Wars game of all time.
Plays Andor enough.
I would buy it twice over if it came out. Okay, remastered, redone, added content, things like that. That would be fun.
I think that show is a masterpiece, and I think the reception and the absolute booming success of it speaks for that. People want good Star Wars.
Yes.
They're just not getting it
100%.
Often. Very rarely with something like Andor coming out. Star Wars Outlaws falls into the really...
Let's not get on the fucking Star Wars shows, man. Boba Fett? Dude, that was ass, dude. That was booty cheeks. That was fucking garbage. Dude.
Interesting bucket of Star Wars that people just don't want to play with.
I was like painfully watching it. Because I was like, oh, I love space bounty hunters, I like Cowboy Bebop. I like the idea of like a space bounty hunter. Dude.
Anymore. They don't want to touch, they don't want to indulge with. But there is still very much a lot of people wanting good Star Wars. It has nothing to do with the IP, with why Star Wars Outlaws flopped. But Goober is still trying to write it off as one of the contributing factors that the game suffered from a number of items. First, it suffered from the fact it was released at a time when the brand that it belonged to, was in a bit of choppy water. And then he acknowledges some technical problems, such as things missing polish, but they were polished and debugged early enough, but it had an effect. Which, again, there were some technical issues, but that is not the main reason that it failed, nor is it the strength of the IP during your release window here. You made basically the exact same copy and paste Ubisoft open world game again. No one wants it. Just accept it. and do something different. The final little nugget from Ubisoft today is in regards to them loosely addressing Stop Killing Games, or more so, what they believe Stop Killing Games is about. And it's not the best response, but it's also being misrepresented by some publications with what he was actually saying. So apparently, Ubisoft CEO Goober was asked to respond to the movement at a recent shareholders meeting and said, regarding the petition, we operate in a market. And whenever we release a game, we provide a lot of support for that game. We also provide a lot of services to make sure that the game is accessible and remains playable 24/7. Wow, what saints. How unique. These heroes make sure a game is accessible 24/7, huh? That's never been done before. Holy shit.
You can play our game anytime. Okay. What?
What? Crazy concept. Whoa. You mean even on weekends you can play your games?
What?
It's so stupid.
On holidays?
Ubisoft does the absolute bare fucking minimum.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, moving on.
Yeah.
Goober says that the company provides information regarding the game and how long the game can be played, though he doesn't go into specifics about how those notices work. The crew, this is speaking in particular about the crew, did have a badge on its front box noting online connection required. You should have known better. You weren't actually buying anything. You were paying to rent. We were giving you a permission slip to play our game for however long we deemed worthy. And the notice in the fine print on the back that Ubisoft may cancel access to one or more specific online features upon a 30-day prior notice. Jumping a bit forward...
See, I don't think... See, yes, I understand, but I just don't... I can... Because, like, I want to be like, why don't you just release the code after the game's been made? But I get that. My thing is, like, is that proprietary? Could that cause them a lot of issues internally? Could that be connected to their company in some way? And that's why companies might be against it. But I'm not fully educated on like the full in and outs. I overall support Stop Killing Games, obviously, because fuck companies, number one, to some degree, and it's more not even fuck the companies. It's support the consumer, really. But yeah, I don't know how that could affect small companies though. See, there's so many different like niche things that you have to really think of. And when you're trying to put out something like this, you really have to fucking cross your dots. I mean, how's it go? Cross your dots and cross your eyes. But, you have to kind of be on top of everything.
He says, but this kind of issue is not specific to Ubisoft. All video game publishers are faced with that issue. You provide a service, but nothing is written in stone, and at some point the service may be discontinued.
Yeah.
Nothing is eternal. And we are doing our best to make sure that things go well for all players and buyers, because obviously support for all games cannot last forever. The article then notes that this is not what Stop Killing Games is trying to do, trying to get perpetual support for the rest of fucking...
Yeah, the idea is that you could do like from what I understand, the idea is that people can be able to host a server and be able to play it themselves. So being able to play peer-to-peer or something like that.
The galactic...
That's from what I understand. Could be wrong.
Existence of these games or whatever. That is, again, not at all what it's looking for. Anyway, though, he goes on to say, the lifespan of a piece of software, whenever there's a service component, eventually services may be discontinued, but eventually the software may become obsolete over time. A lot of tools become obsolete 10, 15 years down the line. They're no longer available, and that is why we release a new version. And so we have version 2 and then version 3, but clearly this is a far-reaching issue, and we're working on it. Now, maybe I'm being too charitable in my interpretation here, but from this statement from him, it sounds more like he is identifying that this issue of games ceasing to exist once the development cycle has concluded is an issue that is not exclusive to just Ubisoft, and currently what Ubisoft does is just pull the plug and give players a notice of the impending doom. And he also makes a mention that games can't be supported by the developers forever, and then goes on to talk about how other tools also become obsolete and don't exist forever. It sounds more to me like he's just making a general statement about it, which he's right. The development on a game can't support it forever, which is why it's not what Stop Killing Games is asking for.
Yeah.
It is asking for end-of-life plans, so that way when the development cycle is complete and they want to wash their hands of the product, what they do is they would have a plan in place in order for that game to be turned over in some way so that the community that paid for the game can still access the product that they paid money for.
So yeah, for online games, I think you'd be able to like host a server peer-to-peer, from what I heard. But I'm speaking jargon. But for these offline games, it's giving some people, or for these games that, for whatever reason, these single-player games, giving them the support.
It can still exist beyond the developers' need to support it.
Yeah.
It is not an unreasonable
To play it themselves.
ask. There have been so many game industry veterans with decades worth of experience in the industry coming forward to talk about how important something like that is and how reasonable and feasible it is as well. It is not some like ridiculous request or anything. It is very much doable. And what a lot of articles have run with from the Ubisoft statement is when he just made a mention of the support for the game can't last forever. And to me, that wasn't like the whole crux of what he was trying to say. And again, maybe I'm being too charitable here to Ubisoft Goober, but with the whole statement, it seems more like he's just identifying it is a far-reaching issue, and it is something that isn't exclusive to Ubisoft, but it is something that he also says that they're working on. It doesn't seem like he was trying to harp on that statement, like, can't support it forever, as like what Stop Killing Games is about. It doesn't really seem like it was targeted and trying to spin Stop Killing Games as that, like I was initially led to believe from the articles that were talking about it. When you see the whole thing, I think it paints a little bit of a different picture. Of course, I'm still no Ubisoft enthusiast here, and of course, Ubisoft isn't exactly happy with this direction, I'm sure, but it doesn't seem like he was trying to misrepresent Stop Killing Games as demanding that we support forever.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I still don't love the statement from him, because I still don't love the way they tackle it. I do appreciate that he says they're working on it. I guess we'll see if they actually do.
That'd be great.
Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how Ubisoft is going these days, because, yikes. Not very good. It doesn't seem all that positive for Ubisoft. And I don't know when they're finally going to have their come-to-Jesus moment and start making good games again and start making decisions that make sense in the industry. That's really about it. So, yeah.
Great video. So, yeah, a lot of people have bad taste in their mouths about what Ubisoft means. At least Charlie's being charitable, saying that, like, most likely they're just making a general statement about, like, them being able to support the games, which I think is fair. Hopefully this changes. Hopefully, consumers do have more rights in their products for gaming. It could be more of a benefit for us as players. In having some kind of end-of-life product for these games that you've bought in. I mean, I don't think it's a crazy ask, but I would like to see some pushback, because I'm more curious what could be huge issues facing something like that. But regardless, be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I enjoy watching Charlie, and I enjoy making these videos, regardless of who watches them at this point. Take it easy, guys. See you later. Bye.